But there's so few examples of someone being able to replace themselves with a general manager, with a broker, with a team leader, whatever you want to call this position, that enables you to step away. A lot of people have made the hire, they've hired that person, but that person ultimately doesn't work out. And I'm going to tell you why. I would say 90% of the time, that person doesn't work out. And it's because that person, it's not the person's fault usually, it's the person that hires the person's fault. It's our client. And it's because in the job description, they do not emphasize recruiting as the key metric. This is a non-negotiable, guys. If you hire someone to run your team, if you hire someone to run your brokerage, recruiting must be the key metric that defines success for them, the key metric. Because here's what happens if you don't make it the key metric. They will start to do what every other human on the planet does. Oh, I am so busy handling the day-to-day and managing all these agents. I am so busy managing all these agents. I am so busy changing our systems to handle and streamlining. I'm streamlining all our systems to be more efficient. What they do, and that is all busy work, gang. And I'm sorry if you're an operational person, because all operational people gravitate to this. But guys, those things are important, streamlining, but that's not important for your general manager. That's not important for your CEO. That's not important for your leader. Those things need to be done secondarily. Because if you do not grow the brokerage or the team by adding more body count to it, you can't afford the person you hired. So they need to get them, you can't be paying them. I don't know how you're paying them otherwise. They're just an added expense. So you must be very clear in the job description. That's why it's in our general manager job description at the top, that recruiting is the key metric. You have to overemphasize that every day. And after they hire, we have to hold them accountable to it. We have to be meeting with them to make sure they're recruiting. Because if you're just hiring a sales trainer / a manager, they're going to manage things just as you manage them. Maybe a little better here or there, but it's not going to change your net profit at all. Even if you streamlined everything and made everything more efficient, your bottom line won't change a penny. Why? Because all those other people that you made their jobs easier, they're just going to fill the space with something else. And it ain't going to be recruiting. So understand that if you hire a general manager or a brokerage owner, they will always be too busy to recruit. I am yet to hear an example where someone wasn't too busy to recruit, because recruiting is the hardest thing in the real estate industry to do. It is hard. It is the highest dollar value activity. It is the reason why I'm sitting here today, because I could do it. And if you're one of those people that can do it, you will be a golden goose running around in the real estate industry that everybody wants and covets, because you were able to recruit. If you're going to replace yourself, you must ensure that they at least agree to recruit and learn to recruit. It's got to be a big part of their job, or they're just going to be spinning their wheels 24/7, and they are just going to become an added expense that will drive you freaking crazy. They drive you nuts. You'll start to hate them. You'll start to resent them because of all their excuses for not being able to recruit. And it's really your fault, because we didn't set the proper expectation and job description up front. And if you've already got one of these people, I'm sorry, gang, you probably have already blown it up, because they will just talk about how hard it is to recruit the new licensees that come your way and how much time it takes to onboard them and all of that. And that'd be me. I wouldn't be any different. If you hired me and didn't tell me recruiting was just one piece, it would be the afterthought. It would be like lead generation for the normal agent. Once I get all the stuff I have to do done, I'll recruit if I have the time, which of course you guys know you never do. None of you. None of ya. That's how hard it is. And I know we got one real big recruiter, Nick Cameron's on this call, and Nick will tell you that. Nick's recruited thousands of agents too, man. It has to be the sole focus of your job. It has to be the primary thing that your performance is judged upon. Here's why. Recruiting and growth is the primary reason and justification for the compensation schedule. Think about it. Let's say I have a real estate team. This can work with brokerages the same way. But let's say I have a team and I've got 20 agents on it. And if I have 20 agents on it and let's say we're going to pull my production out of it. It doesn't really matter if it's in it or not. But let's say I'm the owner and I make $300,000 a year off my team. Okay. In theory, if that team of 20 were grown by my new hire to be 40, the agent mix will probably turn out to be the same. It usually does. And there would be $600,000 of profit. In fact, it might even be more because I don't have to duplicate a lot of my expenses because they're already there. I'm already paying for them. So in theory, everything you do, that's what pays that extra $300,000 that I just added to the top is what I'm using to pay the guy who's doing it, my general manager. But if you bring someone on and you stay at 20, now you've honestly just created a lot more work for yourself training the guy, another meeting or two a week dealing with the guy. You got to get the guy influence all over the place, and you're not growing. He or she has to double, triple, quadruple, and all compensation needs to be tied to it. And if they don't want to tie it to that, you got the wrong guy. Guys, we can find people to be office trainers and sales managers. I can find you in any MLS. I can find you a gazillion of them. They are the easiest to find because everybody wants to be that. Everybody wants to take care of their agents. Everybody wants to train their agents. Everybody wants to be at his leadership. That is so easy to find someone to manage your existing business. But finding someone who can grow it, that has the influence to be able to grow it, that has the discipline to be able to recruit, the humility to be patient with agents that you're trying to recruit, man, now that's a golden goose. Most MLSs don't have one of those people. They just don't. You plop me into any freaking MLS in the country, it's going to change the game a little bit because I know how to do that. You see what I'm saying? And I'm telling you this because this needs to be told to the person I'm hiring. You will become a superhero that is irreplaceable if you can grow. But that has to be the key component. And if there's time left over from the recruiting, then you can love on the agent. Trust me, you won't have a problem getting them to do that. I'm yet to have someone that is so busy with their recruiting and growing the brokerage, they don't want to take time to love on their agents. I'm yet to have someone not easily gravitate to the easier work. It'd be like an agent that I'm coaching and they're lead generating. I was like, man, you're lead generating too much. You are actually creating way too many listing appointments. You actually have to take care of your pending transactions a little bit. I've never had that problem. That is such a rare thing. It's a great problem if you have that problem because it's so easy to put that other piece in. You barely have to pay people to manage your office. They just want to be looked at with that types of role and responsibility. So don't be paying them. Or you get someone who sells a little bit themselves and maybe give them a small, tiny override. I don't know. But boy, oh boy, if you're going to step away, it's got to be someone who can hit the gas pedal and grow that business. So your replacement is someone that can grow better than you. And they have got to be someone who will be successful at recruiting. They don't need to be a successful recruiter, but we got to be able to train them into being one. They got to be very coachable. They got to be very humble, and they're going to need to be held accountable. If you have one job left after you replace yourself, it's holding them accountable to recruiting and growth. And I feel like that's the biggest mistake I see with people replacing themselves, is not putting growth as the key metric, because that's what justifies the entire decision to replace yourself. That's what creates the margin to pay for it too. That makes sense? Any thoughts, questions, concerns?
I have something to add on to that. This is a common question I get is, how do you find that person, right? How do you find the person that to come in? I deal with that a lot. It's a common question. Let's put it that way.
Yes.
That you put influential here, because my thoughts is it doesn't need to be somebody that's like your top agent or he's the best person around, or he's the one that produces the most, or she's the one that produces the most. I don't think that's the person to necessarily take over your team. So what are some things that maybe you have found in the past, or maybe some other people could share on this? Where do you look for this talent?
That's an amazing question. Perfect. And that wasn't scripted, just to let you know. Just a good question. Now, I will say in a perfect world, which doesn't always happen, they come up through your team and they develop a significant amount of business from their own SOI because they're loyal to you. You trained them up and you help them build their own business. And they'll have some influence because they built their own business. That person will have success on the recruiting trail because at some point they were successful. Okay. Because I will say it does help is at some point they were somewhat successful. And I say successful, Brad's right. You don't want someone who's totally money driven. Okay. If they're totally money driven, a straight high D that just gets to the bottom line, I want my money. What's going to make me the most money? They're going to stress you out. And a lot of top producers have that. So that's not who I'm talking about here. When I say successful, if you sell 20 units in a year, you're in the top 10% of any MLS in the country. Okay. And even if they sold 20 units 3 years ago and they're down to 10 units now, okay, that could work. They do have to love leadership. They have to be very coachable because they're going to hit a lot of failure on the recruiting trail. You got a lot more failure before you find your replacement. And same thing with recruiting. You're going to fail the vast majority of times. Andrea and I were chatting about it last week. If you can get a 10-to-1 recruiting contact to show up for an appointment ratio, you're kicking butt. That's not bad. You know what I mean? I think at my best, I was 4-to-1. And that was at my best when I had all the momentum and had a lot working for me. But 10-to-1's pretty dang normal. But that's 9 failures. You're going to say you've tried everything. You see what I'm saying? But you got to keep going. You got to stay with them. You got to keep finding 10 more people the next day to try to get appointments with. Like it's tons of failures. So they're going to have to be okay and acknowledge they have a long way to go to get where they need to be successful here. So I do think they can be created. They do need to have enough credibility and they've got to be presentable enough to sit in these appointments. I don't think they're 25-year-olds. If they're too young, it's going to be very hard. So typically they get a little bit older. They've got a little bit of experience in the business and they've had some success is key. They got to like people. So I's and S's are very good. D's can make it work, but they can't make it work for long.
Let me step in. So I think and this is an and, not an or. You grow within and you recruit. So I think you do both. The beauty of the in is that you get better culture and stuff because they've been there, you get better buy-in and things like that. But oftentimes, unless they have an outside experience besides the team, you have all the limiting factors your team leader has. So you don't necessarily add to your leadership on your team. The outside is oftentimes in our job. It's hard to recruit. It's hard to do some of those things. So if they're from the outside, that you're going to buck that a little bit, but you might be able to buy leadership in that particular thing if you're recruiting outside. So I think you have to do both. I think it's like a pipeline, just like it is for our listings or anything like that. You got to have some people in the pond. You got to have some people that are somewhat interested, and you work from there because you don't know which one's going to pay off in the scenario.
Sure. Yeah, you want to build a deep bench with it. And I think what Donnelly mentions is a very good point too. You got to recruit through the problem, right? Almost any problem you have with a brokerage, you can recruit through it. Okay, so remember that. Almost any problem you have with a brokerage or a team or whatever is you solve it by recruiting, right? If you have 3 deals fall out, you go get 10 more listings and that'll solve that problem. But if you really want to go back and look at all the problems and fix all the problems as to why your deals fell out, you're really going about it the wrong way. You need to just get back on offense. And the same thing is true with recruiting. If you're looking to grow your brokerage and you're looking for someone else to replace you and grow your brokerage, how do you solve the problem? You recruit through it because you're just going to be in a recruiting appointment looking to bring in people. Is this someone that could ultimately replace me? So you're actually out there talent scoping. So if you're out there on the recruiting trail right now and you're just looking for leaders, and if they're not leaders, they're just producers on your team or brokerage, that's the highest and best use you got right now, with maybe exception of Shauna looking to add entire brokerages.
Here's the cool thing about what Shauna's doing. Likely of these ones, she's going to get a leader out of there.
Yeah.
So you're getting not only agents in production, but Shauna's problem is going to be bringing them into the team. So it's not their team, it's Shauna's team, but she's likely to get somebody that, hey, when somebody retires, I still want to be a part of it. I just don't want to be the guy responsible anymore. That's what Shauna might have. She might have the leader of that team. I don't want to be the ultimate person anymore, but I do want to be a leader still. So that's a good way, real good way to bring it.
The
Yeah,
best part is when they said that they didn't want to anything to do with leadership, and now they're in and they're going, oh, can I be a part of that?
just make sure recruiting is the key part if they're going to replace you. That's the key, because no one usually wants to really do that for long. They want to call the 5 people that they might be able to get to join that they know really well. And after that, no way, because it is by far the hardest thing to do in real estate, without a doubt. It's so hard to find that person. Going to have to train them up and coach them up. You know, if I told any of you I want 10 recruiting appointments set for next week, can you imagine what your week would look like? That'd be 2 a day. You know, and a lot of people on here have done that. A tough week. It's a freaking tough week. But boy, oh boy, does your business change overnight. You get someone like that, that's why they're a golden goose. All of a sudden, they take your little brokerage and it finally changes. They take your team and it finally changes. That's the missing piece. It needs to be until you find that person. Quite frankly, it is you. You are that person until by those very same activities, you're going to find your replacement. That's how I found Andrea Sheridan. I needed a replacement and I found her. And I knew it the minute I met with her. And I just had a recruiting appointment after anybody else on here. I know I got some others. Recruiting appointment until I found people that I thought could be leaders and who I thought were influential. And that's what I was looking for. Those were my home runs. When I brought in agents, those were singles. Those were bunts. Those were doubles. Those were, I'm baseball talking here. I don't know if it's making sense, but those were good and they were positive and they increased my production. But if I could find a leader, now we're moving. We're cooking with Crisco. So we got.
Here's my personal, this is a bucket. I know Howie's going after this bucket that I think that you can, especially right now, are good recruits and they're going to come with leadership, is recruit retail leaders, because they hate their job right now and they're used to getting feedback and they have to recruit, because if they don't have somebody to do, like, open to the job, they have to do it themselves. But that's a little bit of a long play, because the first thing you got to do is get them to be good at real estate. Yeah. So somebody with some knowledge, and then you help that person like figure out this new industry and get credibility because they can close on transactions. That would be part of my pipeline. Maybe not the tip of the spear, but that'd be my pipeline.
Another good one too is just people say, you know, when you want to grow your real estate team, I don't want to get new agents, or I do want to get new agents, whatever. I don't really care about the difference there, believe it or not. I care about their database. If I bring on a new agent and she's newly licensed, but she is a member of the country club and highly active in her church, and she just knows everybody, oh boy, I can make them a successful agent very easily, because they just know they have a very big network. Okay. The same is true with leaders. They're leaders for a reason, right? You got Andrea Sheridan. I just gave you an example. Bobby Howe's not on here today, but another good example. When I met them, they knew every single agent in their multiple listing service. They knew every single one. They were dialed in. They had a huge network. They already had relationships with everyone. And because they were running meetings and teams and holding offices or whatever else you do when you do the MLS Association of Realtors stuff, they're actually in a leadership position. They're looked at as a leader already. So people like that, as much as I don't like to be that, I think everybody knows that, but I've been that. But you get those people that have influence. Doesn't just need to be top producers. They know all the agents. They're well respected. So look for people that are involved in the association. Look at people that could potentially be recruiters, because they're dialed in. They know all the agents. They know all the brokers. They already have all the respect. And then, you know what a lot of them don't have, unlike Andrea and Bobby? A lot of them don't have production. A lot of them don't have a career outside of that volunteer career. And you can gift them one. There aren't a lot of leadership roles going around locally. See what I'm saying? So they come to you, they can sell like they always have maybe, and step into a leadership role so long as we can leverage that influence to recruit. That's the way I would do. I've also trained people up that had no influence or real estate sales experience whatsoever. In fact, Nick coaches one of them. It can go either way. But it doesn't have to have all those criteria. But it does need to have someone who's coachable, someone that is okay with failing forward, and a clear expectation up front that their job, their success is failure. Even if you suck at everything else, if you hit our recruiting numbers, you get an A-. I'll figure the rest out. I can find all the other stuff. But usually if they can recruit at a high level, they're pretty competent and they can figure the other stuff out. But I can find you a million deal doctors. I can find you a million brokers. I can find you a million sales trainers. I can find you a million productivity coaches, all super easy. The recruiter, though, that's tough.